Hello, lovely. Welcome to another coffee with cats. Today I am drinking some cold brew coffee I made with vanilla sweet cream and some coffee ice cubes. If you've been watching my vlog channel, then you probably saw me make this. So, cheers. Grab yourself a cup of coffee, tea, hot chocolate, whatever is your preferred beverage. And let's chat for a new little coffee with Cass. So, a lot of you have asked for like paranormal or true crime topics for a coffee with Cass, and I love talking about that stuff. To start this off, I actually made a list here. I made a list of all of the bizarre and unusual topics that I've covered in my series on my second channel, and I figured since I've researched all these, I love researching paranormal and weird stuff, since I've researched all of these, might be good talking points. So today I think I will talk about some of the paranormal stuff, and if you guys like it, then I will also do a coffee with Cass talking about some of the true crime cases that I've researched as well. So today, let's talk about paranormal stuff. So I've always been into paranormal and weird things since I was a wee little Cassie. So when I get to research like weird topics for my series, I love doing it. It's a really fun hobby for me. But I knew like a basis of some of the things on this list before starting the series. Of course, I grew up with some of it around me, some of it I had already kind of researched in a way, so when I made the videos I really dove into the whole thing, if you catch me. So the first ever topic that I did was about Bigfoot and Sasquatch, which was just so natural to me because I live in the Pacific Northwest, okay? Bigfoot is pretty much like our mascot. And then personally, I grew up in a lot of different circles that talked about Sasquatch, and I knew a lot about Bigfoot growing up, so it just made sense to make a video like that. I like to say with really paranormal things that I'm a believer of paranormal, but I'm also a believer that's a skeptic. I don't believe everything that people say, every story, every video that goes on YouTube. And I actually have this other series that I'm going to be doing that's kind of based around that. But I do believe in like weird and paranormal stuff, but not every ghost video that is posted is real, you know what I mean? And so the same way with any of these topics. Like I said, I grew up around everything, a lot of different things relating to Bigfoot, so I know and I've met a lot of like the experts in the fields and things like that that have done all of the Sasquatch research and the looking for Bigfoot and things like that. So it's very interesting for my brain because I've been around it for so incredibly long. But yeah, it's a very interesting topic, and I see a lot of people like outside of the Pacific Northwest are so extremely shocked by how many people talk about Bigfoot around here, at least from my experience. So it's interesting, but yeah. Bigfoot is a very interesting one for me just because I've known so much about it for like the whole of my life and all of that jazz. So it's very interesting. There are some Bigfoot believers or researchers that I really like to hear their opinions, because it's like similar to mine of, you know, maybe there's potential for like a creature like this to be out there, but every Bigfoot sighting doesn't make sense, and there's the fakes, and there's like this and that and things of that nature. So I tend to go for those ones. Some of the more like publicized like shows and other things like that are a little dramatic, and it's like just like any sort of paranormal show, of course they find something every time, you know, that type of situation. But it's interesting, it's very interesting to see those various opinions pop up and whatnot. The Banshee was another one that I did, and I really got interested in the legend of the Banshee when I was watching So Weird as a child, which was a Disney show, and they put it on Disney Plus, thank you. And it was like, they referenced the Ireland Banshee on that show, and I was always very taken with that legend, if you will. And I love the idea of the Ireland Banshee. I know that there's different varieties of banshees throughout different history or backgrounds. I like the idea of like the scream. If you don't know, like a banshee is said to like a banshee is said that her scream is to serve as a warning that you're gonna die, or that death is to come in your family, or that there's something else, like something dark coming to you and your loved ones as a warning. Other references say that she's like a will help guide you to the underworld or whatever, or through the afterlife, I mean, type of thing. And there's some stories and legends that she only follows one particular Irish family, but over the years the Irish family has grown, because, you know, this person marries this person and it grows here and there. It's very interesting though. The Banshee is definitely a legend that I find fascinating. And on the paranormal side, some people relate it to like a ghost, which kind of, there's other people that say like she's like a witch, but that doesn't make much sense to me. But the ghost could be like, if, you know, warding off to the afterlife, if you will. And then others say that more of like a guardian angel in a darker sense, you know, predicting trouble ahead, predicting something bad's gonna happen to warn the family, if you will. But yeah, Banshee is definitely a paranormal creature that I think is very interesting, and I've had a very fascination with for a while. The Black-Eyed Children is another one that I did, and that's a relatively new term, I think, in a general sense. And for me, like, I didn't know what a black-eyed child was, and there's these like sightings. It's kind of known as like an urban legend, if you will. The Black-Eyed Children, if you don't know, is basically like these children that will appear, and they want something from you. Like they want entry into your home, and they want you to give them a ride in your car, things like that. And there's always a very dark sense with these children. Their eyes are supposed to be black. What else? Like, you just feel very sick around them, and there's supposed, you know, urban legend thing, there's supposed reports of these children just like kind of causing unnerved feelings, and when they show up at a doorstep, I think there's a guy in the military for one of the stories that said these children showed up on his doorstep and he was so freaked out, like he didn't let him in. There's another story of like a woman letting them inside, and like her and her husband got sick from it. You know, these stories you have to take it with a grain of salt, because some of these urban legends are just stories past and everything, but it's fun to play around in the paranormal world and like decide what you believe, or what I believe, and compare it to each other. You know what I mean? I love to have conversations about paranormal or weird things with people, because it's always interesting to hear what others think about certain things. So yeah, the black-eyed children is more relatively new. Some people believe that they are possessed children, demons. Some people say aliens of some kind, like sent to either watch humans or like gain information from humans, and other people just say more of like a dark being. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know which one I really go off of. Some of these like theories or legends, I'll be like, oh, that sounds more logical to my brain, or that sounds like it would fit the scary paranormal story or whatever. But with black-eyed children, I don't really have a theory with them. I think it's extremely weird. Anything with creepy little kids is creepy. So it's interesting. It's an interesting topic though, and they pop up more and more with the help of social media, of course. Bloody Mary was another urban legend that I did as a personal favorite from my childhood, because I'm a girl that played Bloody Mary at a sleepover one time. It scared the crap out of me. Bloody Mary, of course, so many different legends, versions of this urban legend, of course. Basis of it is like a ghost that will come if you say Bloody Mary 3 times in the mirror. Sometimes it's just Bloody Mary. Sometimes it's Bloody Mary, I killed your son. Bloody Mary, I have your son. So many varieties of urban legends. Some people have it based back in olden times when they would put the bell at the gravesite and tie it to the wrist or the toe. And if you woke up because you weren't actually dead and you like rang the bell, then they would come and save you. But someone didn't save Mary, and she like, when they pulled her out, there was fingernails in the coffin and things like that. Some people say that that's the origins of Bloody Mary. Some people go into like, I think it's the 60s, where someone was very vain. Other people say it was a bullied girl. Lots of variety for the Bloody Mary urban legend, ghost story, if you will. And I think it's interesting and fascinating because it was such a popular thing when I was a kid. As I'm sure a lot of you know, it was popular for generations to do the whole Bloody Mary game at a sleepover. And I had a very freaky experience when I did it as a kid. And so I was eager to research some of the history behind Bloody Mary and like the science behind it as well, because there has been like scientific research into the panic that kids will cause on themselves when they call to Bloody Mary, the ways that people can freak out, or the study of how a urban legend is passed on. So all very, very interesting things. Let's see. I did one on doppelgangers. Just referencing my list here, I guess that would kind of be paranormal, which I found interesting as well. I find it all interesting. The different varieties of like doppelgangers throughout history, and like, or reflections about how if you see your doppelganger, it can be a bad omen, or it's like you're not supposed to find your doppelganger, or maybe your doppelganger is like the evil side to you, and they can try to take your place and like switch out your life. Very interesting things. There's a lot of like mythology things that reference doppelgangers. I believe the term became extremely popular from the show Vampire Diaries because they used the word doppelganger, like take a shot every time they say doppelganger in that show. But same sort of thing. It's interesting to pinpoint different references throughout history, or reference for some of these things. It was always a joke when I was a baby that my twin, we lost my twin. Like, you know, there's this weird picture where there's like 2 of me because the film melded together, and so I was saying that, oh, my evil doppelganger's like still out there, right? I don't know if it's because I'm a Gemini or what, but we've always said that. So very interesting. Those sort of, you know, half of yourself, or like you just the simple term of doppelganger, where you just like have someone that looks like you, and it's not necessarily an ominous thing, if you will. Another great ghost story, La Llorona. And I heard about this back in the day when Joe Nation did like a short film about La Llorona, and I loved researching this. Haven't seen the movie that came out a couple years back. I'd love to. I love a good ghost story though. La Llorona is obviously more of like a Hispanic legend. It's very popular in Mexico and parts of Texas for the States. It's like La Llorona, the weeping woman. And the story's pretty dark. It's a darker story about a mother basically being jealous of her children getting attention from her husband, her ex-lover, whatever the legend, there's varieties. And so she threw her children into a river, and when she realized her mistake, she tried to save them, but she drowned herself. And when she got to the gates of heaven, they were like, well, where's your children? And she didn't know, and so she's like cursed to wander the world, usually by bodies of water, rivers, lakes, things like that, and look for her children. And you'll hear La Llorona crying and weeping for her children, which is crazy creepy. But I love a good ghost story. And there's always something creepy about mothers killing their children, right? There's always something very dark and creepy about that. So La Llorona, I know, is a very popular ghost story for some people, and I've even been told that some people were, if they grew up with the story of La Llorona, that their parents would like tell them, like, you know, better come home at the right time or La Llorona will come and get you, you know, as almost like a better behave or the scary ghost lady's gonna come and get you. Very interesting nonetheless. Let's see. Winchester House, you could kind of say, is in the paranormal realm of things. Would love to visit the Winchester House. It's in California, and it's about Sarah Winchester, who was the heir of like the Winchester rifle fortune, and she felt that there was a curse on her and her family because of the rifle taking so many lives. And so she decided to start building this house, and the house was to be a puzzle piece for spirits to be confused. There are rooms that go nowhere, doorways that go nowhere, like staircases that go up to the ceiling, glass, stained glass work. It's like fascinating. And a couple years ago they actually found another room that they had no idea existed. That's very fascinating because it takes the paranormal realm of what Sarah Winchester thought that they were building for, and like it's still standing today. It's survived earthquakes. It's fascinating. It's on my like bucket list of places to visit. And I wonder if it's creepy there or if it's just like a regular tour, but I would just love to see everything that they've built. Stephen King, little bit, he said, was inspired by the Winchester House when he wrote Rose Red. And Rose Red is one of my favorite Stephen King pieces. But yeah, I would just love to see the Winchester House and see like her. A lot of people thought she was crazy, of course. Don't we all? But I just like to see her thought process of how to confuse the spirits or how everything. I think it would be amazing to visit the Winchester House. I want to. And then on the other end, we have a place that I have no interest in ever visiting, and that is the Amityville Horror House. So there have been so many movies made about Amityville Horror, and a lot of it is questionable by a lot of people, the real story that took place for that family. But here's my thing. Let's say that it's a haunted house, it's a demonic house, whatever you want to say. Okay, don't want to go there. But there was a brutal murder, several murders, like this huge homicide happened in this house. I don't want those vibes. I don't want to be in those vibes. I can like ghost stories, I can like the paranormal, but ugh, the vibes that are probably in that house, even if you don't think it's haunted, like that's the fact is the DeFeo family was murdered in that house. You know, that family was murdered in that house, so it's just very uncomfortable. But when you start to go into like the creepiness of it, and did they really have rooms filled with flies like in the movie? Did the family actually experience these supernatural things? Ed and Lorraine Warren were investigating partially that, so big names in the paranormal supernatural world. The son that grew up there still claims like he had a horrible experience there. He hasn't gotten over it, PTSD sort of thing. So it's like interesting. Is it like all a story? Was it real? It's very weird. Hollywood doing Amityville horror over and over again. You had the original that was creepy, and then you had like the remake with Ryan Reynolds, and then there's been like dozens of other spin-offs of Amityville. So it's interesting. I don't even know if it's one of those houses that the idea of it is so extremely creepy that I don't even know if I'd want to drive by it if I was ever in New York. I don't know. I can like the paranormal and want to be like, I will like you from a distance. It's very interesting though. But some people are really scared with like houses like that, which I get. Oh, what other supernatural things? I did one of Krampus. I did it specifically for Christmas because it's like the darker side of Santa Claus, which is super fun and interesting. It's like a fun one, especially if you want your kids to behave for Christmas. La Pascalita is an interesting mannequin story. She's a wedding dress mannequin from a town in Mexico, and she like their stories is like it was the shop owner's daughter, and she's very lifelike. This mannequin the skin looks real, and there's all these legends about either the mannequin's possessed or if it's really the daughter's body or how they preserved it. There's a curse on the mannequin, or she goes out and dances in the street when no one's looking at night. You know, so many different legends with the La Pascalita, and I found it really interesting. I hadn't heard about it. It was requested by one of you guys, and I love researching new topics like that. And it's a creepy one. That's one that I would love to see in person, although someone told me, if it's correct, someone commented on that video recently and said that they've swapped out that mannequin. That dress shop doesn't use her anymore, so I wonder if that's accurate or not. But that's a cool little creepy ghost story with the mannequin. And dolls and mannequins are creepy anyway. I did one on Roanoke, the Lost Colony, and depending on your theory, it could be paranormal. Some people, like, there's so many different theories on what happened to Roanoke, and I have to say that researching that one was very fascinating to me too, because it's one of the best, like, mysteries in history. Like, what the hell happened to the Roanoke colony? And some people think, like, they dead set have their opinion of what happened. Either they integrated with another tribe, or they went this, they that. And so many TV shows or movies have referenced Roanoke. It's very interesting. And I loved reading everybody's different theories of things. Were they abducted by aliens? Did they just move with a different tribe? And the more scientific aspect of it is that they've been testing like DNA samples of people that would have grown up in that area to see if perhaps the Roanoke colony did move with a Native American tribe, and then did anybody have like DNA from the Roanoke and the Native American people. It was very, very interesting. Roanoke was one that I found, and those are the mysteries of history that we're never going to get a concrete answer, I feel like. So it makes it very fascinating. And sometimes paranormal. Some people say it was like, you know, ghosties or something that came and killed them. Speaking of aliens, I have done one on aliens and UFOs and stuff like that, and that one I did a lot more research into because I went into like the different types of aliens, like gray aliens and the different types. I can't even think, like the reptilian and the Nordic and whatnot. So that was interesting. I think there's aliens. Okay, I don't think it's possible for this universe to be so big and there not to be something else out there. But that's just me. But I hadn't known about like the different types of alien sightings. So I love when I can research something and like learn something new that's interesting to me. And I was reading up on some of the not references, some of the experiences that people have had. Of course, some of the stuff with Area 51. There's a very fascinating story about a couple that think they were abducted. Just very interesting stuff. And I've been watching a lot of paranormal shows as I'm recording this while I'm in social isolation, lockdown, quarantine, whatever. And I've been watching a lot of paranormal shows, and there's some really interesting clips for alien stuff too that has you wonder. I'm not completely believable in some of the alien videos that people post though. Remember, I'm a believer, but I'm a skeptic believer. Speaking of like historical ones, Salem witch trials can be paranormal depending on what your beliefs are. If they were actually witches, or these women actually witches, was it just the bread that made everybody go crazy, which I think is a bit more logical of an explanation, that all these poor people were like burned at the stake or hung, and you know, all of these poor people died because they were witches, and I think they all just went crazy because of the bread. But still, interesting history to research on. Let's see. Ed and Lorraine Warren is, of course, all of the paranormal stuff, because they are like they've both passed now, like the leaders of the paranormal research stuff with like ghosts and demons and things like that, depending on beliefs or whatnot. They were very religious. And I do have to wonder, now that they're both gone, what happens to their museum, because they have a museum of like all the haunted or possessed items, like Annabelle. Annabelle's in their museum. Can we like make sure that she doesn't go back in the world, because that's some creepy stuff. Remember, dolls are creepy. But some of their cases are very interesting as well. I hadn't actually heard a lot about them until the Conjuring series started coming out, and I'm a huge fan of those. Your girl loves horror movies. And so I did more of the research behind the real people, and some of their cases are definitely trippy. I think they're doing another movie on one that actually, the case actually went to like court, and like the plea, or the not the plea, the guy basically pled that he wasn't guilty or whatever because the devil made him do it, and like he was possessed, and that's why he committed those crimes. And the Warrens actually I think that they were witnesses for the case, so I think that's what the next movie is going to be about. But it's actually in court history of the first case that had like, that was what he claimed: the devil made me do it, it wasn't me, which is interesting, very interesting. But they have dozens of cases, and some people think that they were frauds. Some people think that it was a money grab for them, and other people think that they were the most legit paranormal research couple ever. Different sides, different references. You always have to have that suspicion for paranormal researchers, in my opinion. Like I said, believer but skeptic. And you don't believe everything, but some crazy cases with the Warrens. Soulmates, I wouldn't really say is a paranormal topic, I guess. It went more of like the mythology and, well, at least the parts that I researched, like the mythology and history behind where the term soulmates came from and how humans were punished, and so you and your soulmate were split, and most of people don't find their soulmates to be whole again, or if they do, then like that's the best feeling because they found their soulmate again type of situation. Very interesting stuff. Once again, like I said, goes back to like the mythology. Don't really know if it's like the modern paranormal terms, but still interesting things that kind of go in the realm of bizarre and unusual, or things like that. Things that I can research that I find interesting. I have a bun on my head and I don't know if it looks like I'm really long in this. I can't see. I did one on leprechauns too, which was fun for just St. Patrick's Day. And that goes back to like the beliefs of where you grew up, if you believe in leprechauns, things like that. The Windigo is another great legend or paranormal creature thing, and it has like such like a like mind aspect question about humans, the legend of the Windigo. I found that super fascinating, and it's basically, you know, it's like this beast that in some versions it can morph into people or make you sound like other people or whatever, but the basic story, a lot of it comes from Native American stuff, stories and whatnot, is like if you gave into the hunger during winter, and there was a lot of cannibalism in these stories, then you became a Windigo. Like if you ate the heart of somebody else, you know, or you ate cannibalism, all of that disgusting stuff, then you became a Windigo. And it questions like the moral code of humans' minds, or what humans will, what's the word I'm looking for? What humans will go to survive, and then does it turn them into like this dark being that is a Windigo, either physically or metaphorically? It's very interesting, like the psychology behind the term Windigo, even if you don't believe the legend, which is still a really fascinating legend. If you look at some of the modern traits of a Windigo, not just eating people, you'll see that like some greedy people in this world have some of the modern traits of like a Windigo. It's interesting to compare it to modern society. So that one's an interesting one just because of all that. What else do we got, guys? Ooh, I did one on Marie Laveau, which was also super fascinating. Real person historical stuff that is like, Marie Laveau is the voodoo queen, and super interesting. Although some of that stuff freaks me out. I want to go to New Orleans and see some of like Marie Laveau's spots. I don't know. It sounds very interesting to me. And there was like some super fascinating stories with her. Like I said, Queen of Voodoo. You've probably maybe heard the name from American Horror Story. Angela Bassett played her, but Marie Laveau was like a pretty big deal back in the day, especially for New Orleans. And it's one that I enjoyed researching, some of the history behind her and some of the stuff I didn't know about how she was raised or her family and things like that. It's a good one that, you know, takes the historical point and adds the paranormal with it, if you believe in that type of thing. Vanishing Hitchhiker is another urban legend that goes in with ghosts. I haven't covered ghosts in my series because it's a huge topic. Ghosts are probably something that I most believe in. Spirits, ghosties, whatever. And I find the most interesting in paranormal research shows or videos, you know, ghost experiences. This is like such a huge topic to cover. Like, how do I even start? But the Vanishing Hitchhiker is pretty much like a ghost story of someone stopping for a young girl hitchhiking on the side of the road. And there's a couple of versions. Either she disappears in the car, or the driver drops her off at a graveyard, or drops her off at home. She leaves her scarf in the car. When the driver tries to give the scarf back to her parents, their parents are like, what are you talking about? She's been dead for X amount of years. Sometimes it's she died on prom night from a car accident where he picked her up, you know. Different stories, just like those spooky ghost stories of creepy stretches of road, which can be very scary in a paranormal sense and just a general life sense. And so you add in like the ghost aspect, and it's very interesting and creepy. There's a lot of references for like a vanishing hitchhiker of sorts, like all over the world too, for different versions of this urban legend. I guess it just depends on if you believe in ghost stories or not. But yeah, ghosts are super interesting to me too. Like I said, I love the paranormal shows or movies, stuff like that, where they like research some of the ghost activity or things like that. Not Paranormal Activity. I didn't like those movies. Everybody thought those movies were legit, and I was just like, not for me. And then I think the last like more like supernatural paranormal topic I've covered is deja vu, which has a lot of theories, either like a past life sort of situation where you're remembering deja vu from a past life, or split dimensions where like you have an alternate reality that your other self has already experienced, and that's what deja vu is. Deja vu is very interesting because almost everyone, I think everyone's experienced it at some point, and it's such an odd feeling. Researching some of the topics and theories on why it happens is very interesting, and there's also scientific thoughts that it's just your brain piecing together different things and making it seem similar, like you've relived it. But still very interesting on the thoughts of like alternate dimensions and different realities. That's a mind trip when you start going down that road, let me tell you. But what other paranormal things have I have a whole list that I need to research, need to do for my series. What else? I want to do like sea monsters, things like that. That's not really, I mean, paranormal, kind of. It's kind of like creatures that like haven't been discovered or things like that. Some of those are pretty creepy. I know some people want me to cover like the chupacabra. Loch Ness Monster would kind of be in with like sea creatures, water stuff. Water stuff creeps me out. I got a thing with water. That's creepy. What other paranormal things? There's like more and more that come out. Like I'll watch my paranormal shows and I'll be like, oh, what? What is that? Like a rake? That's been one that's been popping up forever, and it was like, it started like an online thing, and now it's like the theory is like so much energy was thought of it online that it made itself into something that's a rake. That's a creepy motherfucker. But some of these are interesting. Or like shadow people. I kid you not, this video I saw on one of my shows the other day was so creepy. This guy is like going down the stairs, and I kid you not, like this shadow type face looks around the side of the staircase. Dude falls down the stairs, and there's like nothing downstairs, but it was the creepiest video ever. Ugh. Ick, 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 ick. But yeah, those are some of the paranormal topics that I have researched. More to come, of course. I hope that those of you I wanted it in like an ASMR coffee with Cass. Enjoyed it. And I think my next coffee with Cass, I'll probably just like some of these other true crime topics. I know there's a bunch of true crime junkies out there. Some of these true crime cases are super fascinating, so maybe I'll talk about those next time if you guys like. My coffee was good that I made. Go me. Alright, lovelies. Thank you so much for watching this Coffee with Cass all about paranormal topics. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye, lovelies.